Laptops come in all different shapes and sizes, but if there's one form factor that particularly interests me, it's the tablet PC. In this episode, we're going to discuss Windows tablets, determine whether you should buy one, and go over some of the available options if you're interested. So before we start, we need to define just exactly what we mean when we refer to a Windows tablet, because there are technically different flavors of them, so I want to give a clear definition before we move forward. So to me, a Windows tablet is any Windows PC that has a similar form factor to an iPad. Everything is just built into what's basically just a giant screen. And I want to mention this because there exists a much more common sort of kind of like a tablet, but not really. But basically, these are Windows 2-in-1 PCs. Basically, how these work is that it opens up, it looks just like a normal laptop, but you can flip the keyboard around to the back of it, which allows you to use it in a sort of tablet mode. And the main difference between this and a Windows tablet is that 2-in-1s are a laptop first and a tablet second. They're basically meant to give you the experience of using a normal laptop while also giving you the flexibility of being able to use it sort of like a tablet. Whereas with a Windows tablet, that is a tablet first, where basically the whole form factor is just like a tablet with a detachable keyboard. One of the big benefits to having a tablet versus a normal PC is versatility. Even though some Windows laptops do have some kind of touchscreen, there isn't really a lot much other than that. It's just a normal screen that opens up. You have a screen, a keyboard, maybe a touch screen, but all you can really do is just type, use your trackpad. When it comes to a tablet, on the other hand, there's a lot more you can do with it. If you want to have it as a laptop, you can just attach a keyboard to it. If you don't want it anymore, you can take it off. A lot of them have built-in kickstands, so you can just stand it up by itself. You have a touch screen, you usually have pen support, so there's usually a lot more features and a lot more you can do with it compared to something like a PC. You can use it as basically like a digital notebook. You can use it as a computer. You can use it as something you can watch movies on in the evening in your lap. There's so much you can do with it compared to what you can normally do with a normal laptop. One of the big benefits compared to something like a 2-in-1 is stability. Now, a lot of the 2-in-1s that I've seen tend to have very flimsy hinges. Whenever you open it up or you move it around, the screen is going to wobble a lot. Now, there are one or two 2-in-1s I've seen that have much sturdier hinges, but in general, 2-in-1s are going to have much looser hinges. I think it's to make it a little bit easier to flip the screen around to the back, but still, if you're using it like a normal PC, then it's just going to kind of make it feel a little bit cheaper. Whereas with a tablet, a lot of them tend to have built-in kickstands or extra keyboards that you can attach, which just make it feel a lot more stable. So it's not going to go wobbling around a lot, and whenever you move it around, the screen is just going to stay firm. But even with those benefits, there are also a number of drawbacks that you have to take into consideration. First of all, tablets are a lot less lappable than a laptop. So basically what I mean by that is that it's a lot harder to keep stable on your lap. Usually when you have a laptop, all you really have to worry about is just a flat base sitting on your lap. When it comes to tablets, you also have to think about the keyboard, which is usually a bit flimsier because it's just kind of stuck on there, so that's not really very stable. Then you also got the kickstand that usually have to sit on something like your legs rather than having everything just sitting on just the top portion of your lap. So it just makes it a little bit harder to use overall if you want to use it like a laptop. Another big drawback is the fact that they usually have fewer ports. Because you're having to cram everything in such a smaller space, then you're usually not going to have as many ports on the device itself as you're going to end up seeing once we go down the list of some of the options available. And then all this while being more expensive overall. Usually a lot of Windows PCs can be in the range of something like $500 all the way up to $1,000+. Usually a Windows tablet with the similar specs is going to end up costing a lot more. And you're also going to see that once we go down some of our options. But all this begs the question, should you buy one yourself? Well, if your use case does involve taking advantage of tablet mode, I would say absolutely. But if you don't really think you can take advantage of the tablet mode and you think that you're just going to be using something like you would typically have on a normal PC form factor, then you may want to go for either a traditional laptop, or if you're not going to be using it in tablet mode all the time, consider something like a 2-in-1. But if you are considering getting one, then there are a number of options available. There aren't really as many as a typical laptop or a 2-in-1, but there are a few options available for different types of people. Whenever you hear about Windows tablets, chances are people are going to end up thinking about the Surface Pro from Microsoft. This is kind of one of the original Windows tablets that we've had for years now, and they're currently, at the time of recording this episode, on the 9th generation. This usually comes with a 13-inch display with a 2880 by 1920 resolution, as well as a 120 Hz refresh rate on the display. So that means it's going to be much smoother whenever you interact with the screen. It also has 2 USB-C ports as well as a built-in kickstand. And there are even a few color options available if you want something other than black or silver. So the Surface Pro 9 has matte black, silver, blue, as well as green. There is also a 5G option in case you want to be taking this out and about and using the internet while you're not at home. Now, unfortunately, that does end up having a higher starting cost at $1,250. But if you're wanting the base model, which has an Intel i5 processor, 120 gigs of storage, 8 gigs of RAM, then that's going to start you off at $1,000. And unfortunately, this does not include any kind of keyboard or stylus. This is just going to be for the computer itself. So if you want to get either of those, then I believe that's going to be about like a little over $200 extra on top of the computer itself. And thankfully, there are other similar options to the Surface Pro. One of the most similar options is the Dell XPS 2-in-1. I know the name can be a little bit confusing because I talked about Windows tablets and 2-in-1s earlier, but technically tablets are sort of a form of 2-in-1 since they can be both a PC and a tablet, even though this particular form factor is a tablet first. But basically, this is sort of similar to a Surface Pro. It has a 13-inch display with two USB-C ports, but in the box, you're also going to get a couple of adapters. You're going to get one USB-C to USB-A adapter, as well as a USB-C to headphone jack adapter. And one of the biggest hits that this takes in comparison to the Surface Pro is that there is no built-in kickstand. And there's also no 120 Hz display. As a matter of fact, on this entire list, the Surface Pro is the only one that's going to have a 120 Hz display. But I'd say not having a built-in kickstand definitely does kind of take a little bit of a hit on that compared to the other options, because it's one of the things that I think makes a Windows tablet what it is. But that being said, this is also a better option than Surface Pro in terms of value. Spec for spec, it's actually going to be cheaper than the Surface Pro 9. So even though the starting option, which is an i5 processor, 512 gigabytes of storage, and 8 gigs of RAM, that's going to run you $149. But it would run you a lot more if you got a Surface Pro 9. Similar to the Surface Pro, there is also a 5G option, but the starting price for that is going to be a lot more expensive at $1,650. But like I said, spec for spec, this is cheaper than a Surface Pro 9, so I believe this option is getting you an i7 processor, 512 gigs of storage, and 16 gigs of RAM, which again would probably be somewhere around the $2,000 mark if you went with a Surface Pro. Now you're probably listening to all this and thinking, well, that's great and everything, but I'm looking for an option that's just a little bit on the cheaper. I don't want to spend necessarily that much on a tablet. I just want something that I can kick back with in the evening and watch a movie on or something, while also you'll do a little bit of work from time to time on it. And thankfully there is an option for that. So Asus has an option called the VivoBook Slate OLED. And this is a bit interesting because not only is this a $600 version, but this one also has an OLED display, meaning you're going to get much better colors than you would on any of the other options. And it's also the option with the most ports on it. So this is going to have 2 USB-C ports, a headphone jack, and a micro SD card reader. So this is just one of 2 options that actually has a headphone jack on it, as well as a micro SD card reader. And even though this doesn't have a directly built-in kickstand, there is an attachable back panel for the VivoBook Slate that has a kickstand in it. And this is a good option overall if you're wanting something that's a bit more entertainment focused because of that OLED display, and also because it has a 16:9 aspect ratio, which means that it's a bit wider. So that means it's going to better fit a lot of things like videos. Now, like I said, the base model is $600, but this is going to get you only 4 gigabytes of RAM, 120 gigabytes of storage, and as well as an Intel Pentium Silver processor, which is a very low power processor. So definitely not the best option for performance, but like I said, it's good if you want something that you just want to watch a movie or something in the evening. Let's say you're on the other end of the spectrum. Let's say you're wanting to spend more on something that has a lot more power. And for that, Asus also has an option. It's the Asus ROG Flow Z13, and it's the only option on this list with dedicated graphics, meaning if you're using this for more professional work or for gaming, this is going to be a good option for you. So this is a 1300 or a 13-inch display, 1920 by 1200 display, along with a USB-C port, a USB-A port, a headphone jack, and a micro SD card slot. And this option is $1,800, but it is going to get you 512 gigs of storage, 16 gigs of RAM, and an RTX 3050 graphics card. And all this as well comes with a built-in kickstand like the Surface Pro. So which of these options would be right for you? Well, if you're wanting something a bit more affordable and entertainment focused without needing too much power, then I would go with the VivoBook Slate. If you're wanting a good spec for spec value and you're willing to spend a little bit more than that, I would say go for the Dell XPS 2-in-1. If you're wanting the best overall option in my opinion and you're willing to pay for it, or you want 5G at a lower price than the XPS, go for the Surface Pro 9. But if you're a gamer who wants something a bit more flexible, or you just want something that's a little bit better for professional work, go with the Flow Z13. But overall, I think all these are really great options, and no matter what your needs are, I'm sure one of these is definitely likely going to fill those needs. That's all for this week. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next week. Adios.